Here. Yeah. I know this is something.
Chapter 2, Unexpected Aid. Previously on My Hero Academia, Ultra Achievement, Prelude. He stood there between his two friends, feeling the comfort of their closeness and protection as the top 10 hero announcement echoed through the hall. Finally, All Might took to the stage to ringing applause as Japan's new #1 hero, and he stepped proudly to the podium, bearing a huge smile. "I am here," he declared with a grin, to whatever All Might planned to say next cut off with the sound of an enormous explosion echoing through the ballroom. Turning toward the window, Shota saw a ball of flame rising above Musutafu. Backlit by the fireball, he spotted dark figures leaping through the campus trees, the first of which shattered a window, landing in the ballroom. Shota Izawa's worst nightmares never featured anything like the creature in front of him. It appeared to be a person with pale white skin, but easily stood 2 meters tall. It lacked a skull, leaving its brain exposed, the skin stitched to the side of its head. It stank of formaldehyde and rot, moving with exaggerated twitches that could almost disguise the monstrosity's true speed. It looked like something out of a nightmare, drool running out of its mouth as it turned to the nearest person, a dazed reporter in shoes that would never let her get away in time. Before Shota could even think to move, All Might leaped off the stage with a yell of Arizona Smash. Striking from above, All Might's punch buried the creature into the ground, cracking the floor of the ballroom and creating a canyon around his target. More of the creatures poured in through the shattered window, only to be met with overwhelming force from the pro-heroes. A few tried to talk, but attacks by the grunting, groaning creatures dissuaded them. Crimson Riot hardened his hair, impaling one in the leg, but it raked at him with sharpened claws. They appear to only have animal intelligence. "Show them your courageous spirit," the chivalrous hero yelled. Nemuri moved forward, getting some distance from other heroes, and approached one of the smaller creatures. She released her pheromones, but her scent left the monster unaffected. She kicked it away, doing a backflip to avoid its attack while Hisashi felled it with a scream. Obviously damaged by the sonic waves, the creature's head twitched violently, and then its brain exploded, falling to the ground like Pinocchio with his strings cut. "They're a distraction," someone yelled, "they're walking corpses meant to keep us here," and indeed, another fireball erupted in Musutafu. Shota unbuttoned his jacket, and with a touch his capture cloth unfurled from where it served as a cummerbund. He opened the small box, gently taking the yellow goggles. "Hope you don't mind, Oboro," he whispered as he put them on, hiding the box beneath the stage. He glanced at one of the creatures, activating erasure, and the thing collapsed to the floor, twitching and bleeding before becoming still. All Might landed beside him. "Young Izawa, what did you do?" Shota shook his head. "My quirk is erasure. I just temporarily wipe out the quirk factor while I'm looking at someone. It shouldn't have hurt it?" All Might nodded. "These things must be animated by a quirk. I suspect they're not truly alive, or at least not all of them. If they showed any intelligence, I wouldn't ask, but could he knowingly kill these things? They might lack any intelligence, but they could move. And moving made them both danger and distraction." Shota took a deep breath. "No, I understand." Shota glanced around the room, his eyes stinging as he methodically activated erasure on each of the creatures. While a few kept fighting, most of them fell and didn't move again. All Might patted the student on the shoulder. "Thank you, young Izawa. I'm needed in the city." With that, All Might leaped into the air. Running toward his friends, Shota yelled Nemuri, Hisashi, come on. All Might's heading toward the explosions. We need to back him up. Hells yeah. Hisashi shouted as the trio ran from the building. All Might landed in a war zone. Cracked asphalt, all that remained of the streets, water spraying into the air from damaged water mains. Flames consumed several nearby buildings, so with a yell of Detroit smash and a mighty punch, All Might blew the fires out. The patter of raindrops from the newly altered weather couldn't drown out the sound of a slow clap. Bravo, All Might. Congratulations to you on ascending to the rank of number 1 hero. What kind of fan would I be if I didn't set off a few fireworks in celebration? All Might turned, his eyes narrowing. You. Oh, yes, All for One replied, hovering triumphantly in the air. Me. Do you like the quirk? Not exactly new, but one of my favorites. I believe the previous owner called it, what was it? Oh yes, float. With a wordless yell, All Might leaped at his foe. A blast of high-pressure wind deflected him before he could reach his ancient enemy. All for One straightened the tie on his dark suit. He ran a hand through his short white hair and narrowed his black eyes. It's nice to see you in a suit for once, even if it is in such a garish color. Much improved from the red, white, blue, and yellow spandex you're always wearing. You have my brother's quirk, so you should show a bit of class. Honestly, you're an embarrassment. And you're an abomination, All Might spat. Gran Torino planned to kill him. Whether him referred to Toshinori or All for One, he hadn't decided yet. Maybe both. So yeah, a big night for the kid. You're not declared the number 1 hero every day after 15 years steadily climbing the rankings. And sure, Gran felt surprise and more than a little misty-eyed that the kid invited him to the shindig. Hell, he never broke the top 100, personally, not that he ever tried like the kid. A bit of melancholy colored the night, though. Toshinori really wanted to invite Nana. Wherever she ended up in the afterlife, he knew she'd be proud. So, he dressed up and went, for the kid and for her. Not that fancy rubber chicken parties were his cup of tea, but you've got to support your kids, even if you're just a crap excuse of a substitute father who can't hold a candle to the kid's real substitute parent. Besides, free food. May heaven help him survive recovery girl, though. With the fingers on one hand, he could count the people he feared in this world. All for One took up one of them, the middle one, the bastard, and Joe Shuzenji covered the other 4. That woman just did not understand that he wasn't the marrying kind. If he didn't have a speed quirk, she'd have caught him years ago. He shuddered at the thought that playing doctor to her covered a whole different spectrum of discomfort. Then those things burst in through the window and it turned into a real party. Of course, probably no one else here realized what they really were. A recent police raid on one of All for One's shell companies found a warehouse full of empty tanks and medical equipment, with a lot of corpses. The few people they'd found alive were all stripped of their quirks and in most cases their sanity. Even the ones who still seemed mostly coherent talked of monsters being made from the dead. As he kicked one through a marble column, he yelled out to Toshinori. They're a distraction, they're walking corpses meant to keep us here. An explosion in town highlighted that point and Toshinori talked to some whippersnapper who killed these things in an instant with his brain or maybe some invisible eye-beams. Good for the kid, useful quirk. Toshinori leaped from the building, leaving the party behind. He sighed, but then heard Brain Blaster talking to another couple of kids about going to help, quickly following them as they rushed outside. He leaped over to them, landing on the sidewalk in front of them. Good job, kids, especially you, Brain Blaster. You 3 wanting to help All Might. They nodded. Good. Okay, come with me. They followed. Wait, the woman asked. Who are you and where are we going? The explosions were that way. I'm Gran Torino. Trained All Might since you kids were in diapers. and while the explosions were a couple of kilometers that way, my car is parked right outside. With a bit of pride he added, the car's a Gran Torino, too. All Might and All for One traded punch after punch for some time, neither gaining an advantage over the other, and All Might suspected the monster enjoyed this, viewing their battle as some sort of sick game. In all respects, he was the superior fighter, but while many of his punches easily slipped past All for One's guard, the ancient evil shrugged them off. How pitiful, All Might. You seem to have no idea how to truly use the gift given to you by your predecessor. Nana Shimura would be ashamed. If I hadn't ripped her apart, of course. Would you be interested to know what she said in her last moments? You keep her name off your filthy lips. All Might yelled, with a punch that would have leveled a city. The other man took the blow, using the opportunity to backhand the hero through a nearby apartment building. Taking quick stock of his surroundings, he realized he landed in some family's living room. An All Might branded Happy Birthday banner hung from the ceiling, one end fluttering to the floor. The impact demolished most of the front of the building. Thankfully, the rubble fell outward. Dad! The young boy to his side squealed in delight. Mom! It's All Might? Here, in our house. Young, with green curls matching his sparkling green eyes, the boy's grinning face dotted with tiny freckles, he saw the young boy earlier today when he arrived in town. With a sense of mute embarrassment, he realized that the boy wore a onesie replica of his own costume, complete with a red cape attached with loose Velcro straps. Izuku! The boy's father yelled, a man with curly black hair and faint freckles, moved to grab the young boy. He rushed to an entryway leading to the apartment's kitchen where a crying young woman waited, her green hair tied in an up and down bun. For a moment, she reminded of his master. The young boy blended features from both his parents. All Might stood, making sure his hand didn't have anything noxious on it, and patted the boy's curly hair. Be a good boy, young Izuku, and listen to your parents. He nodded to the parents. Get under cover, please. I face a dastardly foe but will do everything I can to keep you safe. Yeah. The young boy cheered. It's all right now. All Might grinned, feeling his determination renewed. That's right, young man. Because I am here. All Might leaped from the apartment through the same hole he'd entered through, a punch forcing All for One back. How touching, the villain sneered, throwing a blast of air that staggered the newly crowned #1 hero. A young acolyte, All Might. You think you can inspire these people to feel safe, but you're a false idol, just indoctrinating the young and foolish with false promises. Perhaps after today they will understand that they are never truly safe. Their protector simply can't keep all the evils of the world at bay. My way will bring them true peace and safety. At least I give them hope, All Might replied, throwing a compact car at All for One. Black tendrils of energy shot from the villain's hands, cutting the car in two, but leaving him open for a punch that knocked the wind from the monster. All your power, and all you choose to do with it is cause terror and grief. The safety you offer is being stomped in the mud underneath your heel. The tendrils pulled back, and wicked barbs appeared on the ends of them, dripping with a sickly black fluid. They coiled in the air behind All for One. I don't cause terror and grief. The world causes that. And with you out of the way, along with your troublesome stolen quirk, I'll bring about a perfect world without terror and grief. And All Might will be forgotten, much like Nana Shimura and the previous holders of my brother's quirk. The tendrils shot forward, and All Might tried to dodge out of the way, but the itcher-leaking spines moved even faster than his incredible speed. He felt a mild sting of one of them piercing his side, a minor scratch that burned like a red-hot iron, and mentally braced himself for worse as the others raced at him. He dodged as fast as he could, but he could feel himself slowing. Even at his speed, he couldn't evade them all. Suddenly, the tendrils reeled back, contracting into All for One's skin with a sickening sound, their poison exploding out to coat the shattered pavement, hissing and smoking before finally becoming silent. What? All for One yelled, looking around and spotting a man with glowing red eyes, his black hair hovering like a darkened halo around his head, stepping from a classic car without taking his eyes off him. He growled, recognizing the young student. He wanted erasure for the doctor's little project but settled for Cloud instead. A blond man next to the other stepped forward from the car's back seat, taking a deep breath. Yeah, kick his ass, All Might. The sound blasted into him, knocking All for One off his feet. He tried to send his tendrils and then a blast of energy, but neither worked. Troublesome. Fortunately for All for One, he'd stolen mutant strength and durability quirks, hence a measure of his power proved unaffected by erasure. With a quick motion, he heft half the car thrown at him earlier, lobbing it at the two young heroes and forcing the dark-haired one to break eye contact as they dodged. He felt his powers return just as a blow from behind pummeled him into the ground. This is payback for Nana, you bastard, Gran Torino hissed, moving around him in a blur and kicking him from all sides. All for One sent a shockwave from his body in a sphere, rapidly spreading away from him and knocking the older hero away from him. I think not. After all, you've hardly torn my limbs from my body and beat me with them. Not to mention all the other enjoyments her last moments brought me. I will admit, I made a mistake blinding her. I would have enjoyed her tears and seeing the fear in her eyes, but I found her screams an acceptable substitute. Reliably, All Might slammed into All for One like a derailed locomotive, blow after blow mitigated by shock absorption as the hero screamed wordlessly. Rage drove All Might now, pure and simple, and easy to defeat. He caught a vicious right hook, using simple judo move to flip All Might over him, shattering the blacktop further. The force of impact so great that the hero bounced up, and with a kick, All for One sent All Might flying at the black-haired woman in a cocktail dress trying to sneak closer to the battle. 1 versus 5 hardly made an ideal battle, a blast of sound disoriented him before another kick from Gran Torino sent him flying. Still, he accomplished much this night. Sadly, erasure wasted the poison reserves he spent months building. His prototype Noma performed admirably, but the reliance on the reanimate quirk copied into each one proved a glaring weakness that would have to be addressed. Omelets and all that. Well, I'm afraid our evening celebration must come to an end, he proclaimed, blasting a leaping All Might away with air cannon. However, I promised myself I would kill the symbol of peace tonight. As Nana Shimura found out, I always keep my promises. With a leap, he entered the apartment building All Might smashed into before, and, with barely a glance, took the roof off. With casual ease, he pulled the crying child away from his parents. Fear gripped the hearts of the adults, as he hefted the small form. And look what we have here. Perhaps not All Might, but I think the death of Small Might here will do much for ending the symbol of peace nonsense. The boy's father screamed no, rushing forward to face the monster. Hisashi Midoriya. Dreadfully shy. Extremely intelligent. A good husband. A doting father. A talented quirk analyst who graduated from UA near the top of his class in the support course. He once hoped to be a hero in his youth. He set all that aside for Inko and then Izuku. He knew that being a hero to his wife and son would be more than enough for him. He wouldn't fail now. Although Hisashi rarely used his quirk the days, it burned within him. Fire quirks ran through his side of the family, and while most of his relatives could resist flame, none of them claimed completely immunity to it either. His chest glowed red as he unleashed a blast of green flame from his mouth, catching the villain off guard as both men screamed. Izuku flew from the villain's grip, his mother's quirk in overdrive as she pulled her son to safety, blood flowing from her nose from the strain. Agony racked Hisashi's body as he kept up the torrent of fire, but it cut out when he felt something rip through his chest. All for One senses screamed, the vitreous humors in his eyes bubbling away as heat melted the flesh on his face. The light of green fire blinded him, the last sight he would ever see. Stolen enhanced senses quirks became a weakness now, with pain consuming his world, but he detected the source of his pain, hardening his skin and driving his hand like a blade through the chest of this fool. You and your entire family will suffer for this. With terrifying ease, he threw the dying man at his wife, knocking her and the screaming child to the ground. Pathetic cattle forgetting their place. I will kill each of you slowly. You'll beg me for the release of death. He searched quickly for his shape-changing quirk, hoping to use it to repair as much of the damage as possible, but it eluded him. The brief distraction supplied all the time All Might needed to make use of the chance given by this brave young father. A blow from behind sent All for One flying forward to slam against one of the reinforced load-bearing columns of the apartment building, his nose breaking from the impact. You monster, All Might growled. The sounds bounced off the walls and wreckage, giving All for One a hazy picture of his surroundings, and the hero seemed larger and more imposing than ever. There, just within reach, the crying child. I'll kill you, not just for Nana, but for what you've done this day. All for One reached out, his hand encompassing the boy's skull. Waste not, want not, the villain thought, activating his quirk, and pulling. Perhaps he could steal a useful quirk from the child. Alas, nothing. The child's quirk had yet to manifest, and now it never would, whatever it might have been. Not that the child would live long enough for his quirk to manifest anyway. He began to squeeze the child's head. Only to feel his powers cut out again, leaving him blind to the world. Strong fingers gripped the nerve cluster in his arm, forcing him to relax his fingers before a punch sent him flying. He didn't get time to recover, as blow after blow shattered his bones. Shock absorption wouldn't activate, and for a moment, All for One resigned himself. After over 200 years, shattered and killed, his stolen quirk stolen from him by glowing red eyes he could no longer see. Only mutant durability prevented him from being slain outright from the assault. Through the haze of pain, he felt himself being pulled to his feet. Never one to give up, he moved to strike in front of him. Too slow. All Might beat All for One bloody, his ancient foe's bones broken by the force of impact. How could this man commit such evil? How dare he? Threatening a child? Killing a young father protecting his wife and son? All Might knew the depths of All for One's depravity. After all, the monster killed Nana's husband just to send a sick message, but this, beyond the pale. And this creature still tried to win, his shattered arm trying to move into an attack. Through gritted teeth, All Might whispered forgiveness, for one such as you, could never be an option. All Might pulled back his arm, focusing all the power of One for all he could, the power singing in him like a chorus of voices urging him to slay the beast. He rarely used his full power, but for once, he held back nothing. With a yell of Velasquez smash, All Might delivered a devastating uppercut to his foe's chest, sending All for One flying into the sky with the sound of a sonic boom as he broke the sound barrier. In turn, the sound barrier broke him, his body shattered further and one of his lungs collapsed from the blow. Only the incredible speed All Might's blow imparted on his crippled form saved All for One in that moment. He flew so fast that he vanished from the quirk suppressor's sight in an instant, his quirks flooding back to him, granting him the durability to survive. This did not mean delivery from danger. All Might's punch sent him into the air like a missile, much faster than the speed of sound straight up. Even with all his power, while he might survive the 6-minute trip into outer space, the vacuum and radiation of space would certainly kill him. On the verge of passing out from the pain, he forced his mind to calm. Black fluid pooled in his remaining lung, erupting out of the gaping wound in his chest, forcing his other collapsed lung to reinflate. The liquid surrounding him and All for One disappeared. Kyo2261 celebrated a good night, chilling champagne to toast his master. The prototypes performed admirably, distracting the heroes for quite some time, and even giving trouble to some of the top 10 heroes. They needed perfecting, that much painfully apparent, but Leonardo da Vinci hardly painted the Mona Lisa on his first time holding a paintbrush. Obviously, giving them each a constantly active reanimation quirk proved a weakness, since if something cancelled that quirk, they simply became corpses. Perhaps only killing a part of the brain would be more effective. His musings cut short when a pool of black, viscous liquid appeared in the air beside him, and his sensei's body appeared, traveling far too fast and burying itself into the earth. The impact destroyed the office, throwing the doctor back into the wall. The doctor pressed a button on his phone and spoke into it. "Gigantomachia, your master needs you." The clinic above shook, ripped from the ground and thrown out of the way. Patients and staff barely constituted an afterthought. Gigantomachia reached down, moving Earth aside to gently lift the still form of All for One. "My master! What have they done to you?" Gariki yelled up at the monster. "I can help him. You must get us to location 7. Gigantomachia shrank, cradling his master in his arms as the doctor grabbed a USB drive containing data from his experiments and scrambled onto the monster's back. With a leap, they disappeared, and the now deserted lab exploded in a ball of flame. Toshinori Yagi wanted nothing more than to collapse, but gently made his way over to the crying mother and child. His side burned and his muscles ached, but these poor souls needed help. He gently picked the young child up, his heart breaking at the soft cries of "Dad! Dad!" Inko Midoriya stared silently at her husband, tears streaming down her face. Miraculously, the man still lived, but barely. A dreadful hole pierced one of his lung and burns covered his chest and throat. All Might realized that the brave father cooked his own chest from the inside out. With only one scorched lung, the young man slowly suffocated, and any help would come too late. "Don't cry, Inko," he choked, taking her hand in his. "Gotta be strong for Zuko." "Hisashi," she shook her head. "I can't do it without you." All Might kneeled beside them. He bowed his head in respect to the dying man. "I'm so sorry." "Not your fault." "Thank you for saving my boy," the man said, his voice barely a whisper. Izuku wiggled out of All Might's loose grip, grabbing his father's shirt. "Don't go, Dad." "Got to, Zuko," the man coughed, black charred blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. "Take care of your mom for me. Grow up and be her hero." The young boy, Izuku, cried now, "Waterworks an easy match for his mother." "I will. I promise. Dad, I'll be a hero, even better than All Might. I'll protect her. I'll protect everyone." The boy's words carried the weight of a solemn vow. "I promise." "I know you will, Zuko." The man reached up, carding his hand through his son's hair. He looked up at All Might. "Please," he whispered. Toshinori understood. In the man's last moments, his only thoughts to secure a safe future for his family. Of all those who fought today, the greatest hero laid before him, breathing his last breath. In Toshinori's experience, only the love Nana showed him compared to this, he couldn't imagine any greater love. "I promise, they will want for nothing except you, my friend," Toshinori whispered in his own solemn vow. "Thank you," Hisashi Midoriya whispered. He slowly lowered his hand. "Inko, Zuko, I love." His words faded into the silence. There in the wreckage of an apartment turned into a battlefield, pro-heroes bowed their heads to a father who gave his all to defend his family. Quiet sobs of a grieving wife and son left behind echoed in the stillness, the only sounds in the hush that followed the battle. Though battered, bruised, and cut, they lived because of the sacrifice and unexpected aid of a regular citizen. Hisashi Midoriya, husband and father, breathed his last. With all the other scrapes and bruises, no one noticed one more small, circular wound on the forehead of young Izuku Midoriya, soon to fade without even leaving a scar behind to mark the passage. My Hero Academia is the property of Kihei Horikoshi, please support the original author. This work may not be reposted to any sites that charges for access, and if you do want to repost it, please get my permission.
No. No purpose. Okay.
Chapter 3, Less/More. The young boy called Deku, and Toshinori suspected he knew the meaning of that, raised his fists bravely, but with poor stance, shaking legs, and a distinct disadvantage in numbers. Come on, Kiken, you already made her cry. Sunday, July 15, 2255. Izuku Midoriya's 12th birthday arrived, but he couldn't find the mood to celebrate, even if he did share his birthday with Japan's current emperor. While a mostly figurehead position, Aldera took the entire week off to honor the emperor. Mom offered to throw a party and invite all his friends, but Izuku asked her not to. Most of them would be busy with summer vacation activities, he said, although they both knew the real, unspoken reason, Izuku didn't have any friends. Kiken might come, under protest, and only show up because Aunt Mitsuki would force him to. He felt like the past year beat him down enough, no need to add a literal beating from Kiken. Birthdays sucked anyway. His third birthday cost him his father, his fourth birthday came around without his quirk coming in, and a doctor's appointment on his fifth confirmed that it never would. Stupid toe joint. Funny enough, all his reading on quirks never mentioned anything about that, but he supposed talking about people without quirks wasn't too exciting when you could talk about quirks. Nobody cared about the quirkless anyway. Well, except for Mom. She cared for him. Izuku sighed. Dad probably would have cared, too, but part of him feared that his quirklessness would have disappointed him. He'd left behind his quirk analysis notebooks, and Mom gave those to him for his 5th birthday, after he asked her if he could be a hero. She hugged him for a long time, tears streaming down both their faces, before she quietly said, "Your father was a hero long before he ever used his quirk to save you. He analyzed quirks, helping to find ways that heroes can improve and weaknesses in villains. You're smart, and kind, and brave, just like he was, Izuku. You can be a hero like that, even without a quirk or fighting." He'd thrown himself into reading those notebooks, one of the few tangible things left to connect him to his father. Maybe he couldn't use Mom's minor telekinesis or Dad's emerald dragon flame, but he inherited his father's spark of intelligence and threw himself into learning how quirks worked. Mom patiently answered any questions he asked about her quirk, and then he started watching clips on HeroTube, reading his dad's entries over and over until he could dissect a quirk in moments. That's when he asked Mom for a notebook of his own, which became Hero Analysis for the Future. He filled it up quickly with analysis of his classmates and the top 10 heroes, and then went online and read some of the more respected analysis blogs to compare where he got details right and where he might be wrong. He added a second notebook and continued like this until he started Volume 3. At this point, Izuku found confidence in his skills, and wrote quite a bit about Kiken. He made the mistake of showing it to the explosive blonde boy and his aunt and uncle one day, notes on his many strengths, his handful of weaknesses, ways to improve. Kiken's delighted parents praised Izuku's intelligence and thanked him for the simple recipe to neutralize their son's explosive sweat, preventing accidental explosions. Kiken read through it for a long time, his eyes narrowed, and he remained completely silent. The next day, Kiken punched him for the first time, a painful right hook, the first of many to follow. They didn't talk as much anymore, and Izuku began hiding his notebook from Kiken, trying not to mention it, or letting him see it ever again. He'd left it on his desk one day while he went to the bathroom, and Kiken stared at him suspiciously when he came back. From there on, he kept it in his backpack except when he wrote in it, and never let it out of his sight, but it was too late. Everyone whispered that he made plans to try and kill everyone, and the indifference of his classmates became open hostility. In fact, if you asked any of his so-called friends to describe him, they would use many words, but they all boiled down to less. Hopeless. Powerless. Useless. Quirkless. Fatherless. Just, less. Life wasn't fair, and not everyone was created equally. These two truths Izuku Midoriya learned at a young age. Izuku drew into himself at that point, becoming distant from most of his classmates. "Hey, Mom," he called out, leaving his room. "I'm going to go for a walk." Poking her head out of the kitchen, she smiled. "Okay, Izuku. Before you go, you got a package in the mail. Special Sunday delivery for the birthday boy." His eyes perked up at that. "Really?" Moving quickly toward the coffee table, he saw a huge box from Might Incorporated. Every Christmas and birthday, Izuku received a big present of All Might merchandise, and a lot of merchandise from other heroes signed with the agency, including incredibly rare stuff. He even got the All Might 20th anniversary poster, number 1 of 100, and signed by All Might himself. If Izuku didn't love All Might merch so much, he could sell it and be set for life. Opening the box, he went through the shirts, books, movies, holo discs, and games. The box even included a brand new PS500 with the limited edition All Might skin and a copy of the brand new Hero of Peace game. He set the stuff down, selecting one of the All Might shirts and replacing the one he currently wore. The burn on his back stung a little when the fabric rubbed against it, but the new shirt's softer material felt better after a moment. He walked into the kitchen and showed off his new shirt, spinning around for his mom to see. "Oh, it looks really good on you, Izuku," Mom said. "Thanks," he replied with a smile. "Hey, Mom, I mean, why does All Might bother? I've only met him those 3 times. "Oh, Izuku," she said, sitting down at the kitchen table. He sat beside her, and she took his hand. "All Might's a good man, and I'm sure he wishes he could meet you again to make sure you're doing all right, but he doesn't want to put you in danger. I know it seems strange to regular people like us, but I think he just wants to help and feels responsible for what happened to." She paused and finished with us. Izuku could tell that's not what she meant to say at first. "Don't get me wrong, I love his merch, but how does All Might know that?" His mother laughed. "Izuku, you wore an All Might onesie 2 out of the 3 times you met him." "Yeah," he persisted, "but surely he's got more important things to worry about." "Well," she said, looking up a bit, "maybe he set things up years ago and forgot about it, but I think he does care. You'll probably be getting All Might merch for your birthday well into your 90s. With a laugh, mother and son hugged, sharing the humor to lessen their sadness. After a few moments, Izuku stood. "I'll be back by dinner." Worry drove All Might to Musudafu. He recently fought with a lower-ranked villain, Toxic Chainsaw, when his strength faded for a moment, leaving him temporarily vulnerable. While he barely considered the villain's cut along his right forearm dangerous, it spoke to a more serious concern. A week ago, he noticed a black spot in the whites of his left eye. While it didn't seem to affect his sight, the spot grew slightly larger over the past few days, and he found 2 small black spots in his right eye this morning. Today started early, disguising himself with loose-fitting clothes and a baseball cap, along with some fake glasses. He always thought it a bit silly, but surprisingly true. People didn't really see him, they saw the costume, the hair, and the smile. Quiet and uneventful travel to Musudafu from Tokyo consisted of early morning commuters checking their phones or reading the paper rather than looking at a large man hunched in a seat. This time of day most people traveled to Tokyo anyway, so the train only held a handful of commuters. Yue told a different story. Those who trained and taught here proved far more observant, and multiple people stopped him for autographs, advice, and mutual words of encouragement before he could reach the main building. Young Aizawa barely showed a double take, greeting the senior hero with an almost embarrassed wave. Well, if it isn't All Might. Is a press conference going to break out? All Might grinned. Aizawa's disdain for fame and the trappings that went along with it caused some initial friction between the two heroes until Toshinori realized that the younger hero used sarcasm and criticism as defense mechanisms. After deciding to tease back, he noticed approving nods and grins over the past few years. Secretly, All Might relished the banter with the younger man. Oh no, young Aizawa. I am undercover today, looking to stop a dangerous ring of international sleeping bag thieves. You'll tell me if you see anything, of course. I suspect their ultimate target may be found on this very campus. Aizawa rolled his eyes as a couple of students broke out into laughter nearby, no doubt his students. Don't laugh too long, or you'll be late to Mr. Yamada's makeup for the final. Miss this one, and you'll be in summer school during the training camp. With a wave the young teacher continued along his way, leaving All Might free to reach his destination, the school infirmary. Recovery girl drew blood and started a full set of lab tests as he described his symptoms, a momentary loss of power, the spots in his eyes, and a mild ache in his left side from the old wound he received battling All for One those years ago, not far from where he stood now. He added a new symptom, pain in his head from being whacked with a syringe-shaped walking stick for not telling her sooner. So, how long will the results take? He asked bashfully. 6 hours, and that's assuming you're not in the back seat asking, are we there yet, the whole time? At his look of concern, her features softened a bit. Look, I know what I'm doing. You're probably just overworked. God knows Nana used to work herself into exhaustion. It's a quiet day and there are other heroes in the world. Why don't you just relax and take things easy for once? See a movie. Visit a park. Smiling at her, he decided to take her advice. I may just do that. Over the past several years, Toshinori Yagi became, well, a workaholic. He rarely took a day off in those years, so he found the simple act of walking around Musudafo a novel experience for him. Sure, he grew up here and attended UA, but training and school occupied his time from an early age. Finding free time for once, well, he didn't know what to do with himself. He started out with a stroll through the shopping district, trying the free samples, looking through bookstores, and simply people watching. Sometimes he forgot the reason he fought amounted to preserving the safety of these regular people living their lives. A lot of their discussions went over his head, talk of the latest hit TV show, the newest cars, the boredom of their jobs. As a pro hero, he rarely watched much television beyond the news. A single jump could send him several kilometers, so he never bought a car, though he knew how to drive, and considered getting one at some point. As for boredom at work, he prayed for it. Leaving the shopping district behind, he headed toward Musudafo Municipal Park. Even some 40 years later, he knew the way, a simple right down memory lane and there it stood, like he never left. As a child, he played on this same jungle gym, although it sported a different color from a recent paint job. The years changed nothing important about the park, but Toshinori Yagi's younger self wouldn't recognize the towering colossus he became. The metal construction once towered over him, now he stood few centimeters higher than it. He could almost hear the echoes of the past. Yajitatanai, he thought to himself, how many years passed since I've thought of that cruel nickname. Some of his school friends named him that, replacing the first few syllables of Yakonitatana with his last name. Either way, it meant useless to them. A quirkless loser, back in the days when 1 in every 3 lacked a quirk. Today the official percentage stood at 20, but many of the quirkless were elderly. Among the current generation, estimates pointed to less than 5%, perhaps far less. Yes, he could almost hear them now, even after all these years. and then he realized he could hear it now. He glanced around, seeing a group of 3 young boys menacing another boy who stood protectively in front of a 5th child on the ground. The leader of the trio brought his fist into the palm of his other hand, creating a small explosion. Looks like Deku decided to try growing a spine for his birthday. The young boy called Deku, and Toshinori suspected he knew the meaning of that, raised his fists bravely, but with poor stance, shaking legs, and a distinct disadvantage in numbers. Come on, Kaken, you already made her cry. Screw you, Deku. She knows this is our park. The blonde-haired ringleader took a menacing step forward. I was going to go easy on you because today's your birthday, but it looks like you've let it go to your head. I've got to remind you of your place now. Worthless, useless, quirkless, fatherless Deku. The boy called Kaken stepped forward with a strong right hook. To his credit, the boy named Deku blocked the punch well, but he left himself open to a follow-up blow from the left, an open-handed strike that carried with it a powerful explosion, burning a charred hole in Deku's shirt, and filling the air with the scent of burnt flesh. That's enough, Toshinori roared, rising to his full height, and running forward. Holy crap, run, one member of the trio yelled at sight of the approaching behemoth, and the 3 took off. The blonde boy called Kaken turned back at the edge of the park. You'd better be ready to apologize next Monday, Deku. If you're not at school kissing my shoes early in front of the whole class, I'll beat you so bad, you'll wish you'd taken my advice. The boy shoved his hands in his pocket, turning and stomping off, not even bothering to run after his 2 friends. Toshinori moved quickly to the injured children. The one on the ground quickly stood, wiping her tears on her sleeve, and ran without even a muttered thanks to her protector. The other, the heroic child, hung his head in defeat and bowed to Toshinori. I'm so sorry for fighting, sir. Not only beaten, but it also seemed the boy expected to be punished for the entire incident. Relax, young man. You're not in any trouble. I think what you did was very brave. Getting a closer look at this boy his contemporaries called Deku, he noticed a few things. Curly green hair, wide green eyes, freckles, a look of astonishment as he stared up at Toshinori, and a burnt All Might t-shirt, one that wouldn't be released in stores for another month. What were the odds? Izuku Midoriya? Toshinori asked hesitantly. Equally hesitant, the young boy nodded and whispered, All Might, as a question. All Might sat himself on the balls of his feet with a nod, almost, but not quite, bringing himself to eye level with the young boy. Amazing courage ran true in this family. I never imagined I would run into you today, young Midoriya. I'm truly fortunate to see you. Happy birthday, by the way. You remember? The boy asked with awe. Smiling, All Might reached forward, gently, when he noticed the boy flinch, and ruffled his curly hair. Of course, I do. He could never forget. A bright and cloudless summer day commemorated Hisashi Midoriya's funeral. Many people associate funerals with the rain, but statistically the sun is just as likely to shine on grief. In keeping with his wishes, Hisashi left this world via cremation, one final fire taking his soul into the afterlife. Inko Midoriya and her son arrived early to the temple. She wore a somber black kimono while Izuku wore a slightly too big black suit with a white shirt and a black tie. Only a few days passed since Hisashi's death and Izuku asked to be allowed to recite a sutra in honor of his father. He practiced while she went to speak with the priest. When she tried to make payment, the temple refused, telling her a third party already settled the matter and she could focus on her grief. Mitsuki, Masaru, and Katsuki arrived next. For once, Katsuki remained silent, but his eyes probed about, taking in everything, no doubt his first time attending a funeral. Mitsuki cried frustrated tears, hugging Inko while whispering "damn it," repeatedly. Inko returned the hug, feeling her friend's strength bolster her spirits. As crude as Mitsuki could be at times, Her fierce nature often firmed Inko's resolve in hard times. She could only imagine one horror harder than this, and she violently shoved that thought away. "Mitsuki," she whispered, "they said someone settled the bill." "What? How the hell did that happen?" "We were going to talk to you about it, that's why we came early, but it wasn't us." A large man dressed in a simple black suit stood at the door, his bow sending the two huge strands of his blonde hair bouncing. "I'm afraid I must take responsibility." "All Might." He walked forward. "I hope you forgive the presumption, but I can only imagine how difficult things must be for you right now." "Oh, All Might," Inko sobbed. "You shouldn't have done that." He dropped to his knees, bowing in Dogza, placing his nose against the floor. Mitsuki and Masaru both gasped, while Katsuki watched with quiet, wide eyes. Inko kneeled in front of him. "Please, All Might, you shouldn't. I gave your husband my word, as one hero to another." All Might rose now, taking a piece of paper from his jacket and presenting it to Inko. "It took some work, but I convinced the HPSC to name your husband a pro hero, with the agreement that his pension would be covered by my agency. Living arrangements will be made for you and young Izuku, and his schooling will also be covered in full. Should you ever need anything at all, please, call me or the agency." Through her tears, she managed a sad smile. "He'd have been happy just to know that you would even come to the funeral. I should warn you, there are many pro heroes who will be coming today to honor him. If it is all right, I'll stay close to introduce you. You may not recognize them outside of their costumes, and quite a few are underground heroes," All Might offered. "Thank you," she replied, engaging in an ultimately futile attempt to control her tears. "He was a quirk analyst, you know, he always loved heroes. Izuku takes after him so much." All Might returned her smile. "If he's half as brave as his father, Izuku will surely replace me as the #1 hero someday." Inko frowned slightly at this, as did Katsuki Bakugo, though no one paid any attention to the young boy. Izuku's quirk probably wouldn't come in for another a year. All Might turned to greet Izuku, speaking quietly to the quiet boy, talking in gentle tones, and giving the boy an encouraging hug. Katsuki Bakugo didn't speak to the #1 hero but watched in silence through narrowed eyes. Izuku sat down on the park bench beside his hero and opened a small compartment on his backpack. All Might noted an assortment of bandages, disinfectant spray, cold compresses, a variety of burn ointments, even a suture kit. "This will just take a minute," Izuku said, handing All Might a notebook with hero analysis for the future Volume 9 written neatly on the cover. "You can look through that if you want. I think I have some fairly good details on some of the people who work at your agency in that one." The boy lifted his shirt, using some gauze and disinfectant to clean the wound before adding burn cream and a cold compress with practiced ease. Uncomfortably, All Might noticed a variety of star-shaped scars on the boy's chest. He turned back to the book to respect the boy's privacy, flipping through the pages. Each page crammed full of an amazing level of detail. He'd seen professional-grade quirk analysis that paled in comparison to this. The organization could use work, of course, as it appeared a bit stream of consciousness, but nonetheless remarkable, particularly from a 12-year-old. "Your analysis is very impressive. You have a real talent for this." "Young Midoriya," he asked, "who was that young boy?" "Oh, that's my friend, Kiken." He didn't look up to see All Might's frown at the word friend, also tending to a small burn on his arm that almost disappeared with a flesh-colored bandage. "He's not so bad. Don't worry, he'll have forgotten it by the time school starts back next Monday. He's always a bit mad, but he never stays that mad for long." The boy opened another compartment, pulling out a spare shirt and quickly replacing the damaged one. Young Midoriya's back proved worse. Naturally, the boy surely found wounds on his back harder or impossible to reach by himself. He pulled out a small sewing kit and a laundry stick, eliminating as much of the ash and burns from the shirt as he could, selecting a similar colored thread, and quickly sewing the hole in his new shirt closed. He eyed it critically before changing back into the shirt. "I can get you a new one," All Might said softly. "Oh, it's okay, All Might," young Midoriya said with a smile. "You've done so much already, and Mom shouldn't notice it. I've got so many of your shirts that she can't keep track of them all. I'll just donate it to charity, so she won't notice the burn." Toshinori shook his head. "That's not the point, young man. You shouldn't be hiding this from her." Izuku tempered his look of wonder at the pro-hero with a bit of confusion, as if wondering if All Might really came from another planet as some of the rumors said. After a few moments, the boy shrugged and whispered, "It's the best option." "It can't be. She can help." A few tears rolled down Izuku's face. "She's tried, All Might. She's gone to the school more times than I can count, and they tell her I'm disruptive and then I'll get detention for something I didn't do. She's called Kiken's mother, and yes, he gets punished, but he'll wait a week and then really give it to me. It's okay. It's better if she doesn't know. I can handle anything except seeing her cry, and that's all telling her would really do. It hurt her every time she tried and couldn't change anything. At least this way only one of us gets hurt." All Might stood up. "Then I can help." Izuku laughed, a bitter laugh older than his 12 years should produce. "All Might, you're far too important to waste your time on some hopeless, powerless, useless, quirkless, fatherless Deku." The boy practically spat the last word. All Might fumed, feeling the unfamiliar sting of powerlessness. "It was bad when I was growing up, but I was never beaten this badly," he thought. "I wasn't even the only quirkless kid in my class, but it's so rare these days young Midoriya may be the only one in his grade, if not in the entire school. You're none of those things, and I don't even know what Deku is supposed to mean." "Oh, that." Izuku shrugged. "It's another way to read Izuku. Kiken came up with it? I figure it's short for Dekunobu or maybe the shrub people from Legend of Zelda. I've never bothered to ask him. Just another way to say useless." All Might took a few deep breaths to calm himself. "Oh, Yajitatani. The nickname my classmates gave me to call me useless. My quirk came in rather late. Those who looked back on childhood with fondness probably didn't pay enough attention while it happened to them." "He said he gave you some advice." Izuku looked away. "Oh, that's nothing. Don't worry about it." Still, All Might persisted, "I'd like to help." Izuku stood up. "All Might, you've done so much for my mother and me. The world needs All Might, and you can't spend all your time watching me just because of a little bullying. I can handle it. It was great to see you today. Thanks for saving me today, and, you know, back then." The boy bowed at the waist nearly 90 degrees. "I should be getting home." With that the boy gathered his supplies and ran off, turning when he reached the park entrance to bow again. And then he was gone. That butterfly's really starting to flap those wings. Chapter 4, An Awful Idea. She seemed to jump to some sort of conclusion based on his question, because he received his second "What planet are you from" look of the day. "That is an awful idea." The war raged, and they fought it in fleeting moments. Taking up arms against the darkness, before, weakened by their exertions, they retreated to their citadel to rest and grow stronger with their bounty. In this way, their shadow war continued. The creatures outside battered against the walls of their fortress, but it defended them, invulnerable against the clawing and rending onslaught. Time weakened their foes, while they strengthened, wiping out the weaker enemies and taking their power. Even when they ventured past the walls, their armor shielded them, but the further they explored, the weaker their protections grew. And so, they stayed close, satisfied to slay the weaker scouts, and bide their time. Occasionally their ancient foe approached the battlements with his minions. In those times, they killed all they could, fighting ceaselessly until the time to rest came once more. Now the foe tried a new strategy, salting the very ground that housed their citadel. They remained strong and resolute. A new champion would arise, and they would add another to their company, only hastening their foe's defeat. The larger their foe's enslaved horde grew, the weaker his hold on each slave became. Their own numbers remained small, but their power grew. Soon, All Might sat in the park for quite some time, lost in his thoughts. He often met children over the years, but usually while they coped with a villain attack or as starstruck fanboys. Young Midoriya represented a confusing blend of the two, but also much more. A fan, of course, but not one of the anonymous ones that he met out in public. The victim of a villain, as well, not just all for one, the boy's own father settled that issue. Instead, the boy silently suffered from abuse from both his school system and someone he considered a friend. So perceptive, too. Even with all his power, he couldn't be there to always guard the boy. Certainly, All Might could storm into the school district and throw his weight around, and while that may change the situation for the better in the short term, it could cause far more damage in the long term. As Toshinori sat and stewed in his thoughts, he nearly jumped when his phone buzzed in his pocket. Answering quickly, he smiled at the stern voice of Recovery Girl. "Glad you took my advice, but it's late and I'm getting ready to go home. I've got some results. How soon can you get here?" With a grin, Toshinori turned to face Yue and leaped into the air. "I am here," he said into the phone. Maybe with some luck he might run into Aizawa again. While still a relatively new teacher, he might provide some advice about young Midoriya's situation. Moving quickly into the building, he walked into the infirmary, where Joe sat with a grim expression. "Sit down, Toshinori," she said gently. "You're not going to like this." He moved to one of the beds, sitting on the edge of it as all the chairs in the infirmary looked far too narrow and fragile to hold him. "You're certainly making me worry." "With good reason. There's some strange compound in your blood, and it seems to be from that small scratch you got fighting All for One. It's basically a poison of some kind, but I've never seen anything like it." "Can your quirk dash?" he started to ask, but she cut him off. "No, I can only heal wounds. The wound is already healed. The poison itself is acting like a disease or even a cancer, and my quirk doesn't affect those." Toshinori nodded. "So how long do I have?" "Well, the good news is that it isn't fatal. It's causing some of the cells at the wound site to produce a protein that interferes with the quirk factor, but it seems to be spreading very slowly and the compound breaks down quickly. It will spread, though. Other than temporarily disabling your quirk, the only other effect is the change in the color of your sclera. Within a year, they'll probably be solid black." She stood up and walked to the bed, putting her tiny hand over his. "For now, you'll experience maybe a minute or two where you can't use your quirk per day. Using your quirk seems to stimulate the production of the compound but also causes it to break down. The amount of the compound in your system will keep increasing, though. Sometime in the next 10 or so years, you'll be effectively quirkless." All Might stared at the tiles on the infirmary floor, but then looked up with a smile. "That's still quite a bit of time." Joe nodded. "You're taking this better than I thought you would." "Well," he said standing, "I started out quirkless, it won't be so bad to end that way. This will give me plenty of time to find and train a successor." And, oh, did he know the perfect candidate? Almost poetic in a way, coming full circle and solving multiple problems at once. He turned to Cho. "Can you call Aizawa down here?" She seemed to jump to some sort of conclusion based on his question, because he received his second "what planet are you from" look of the day. That is an awful idea. After graduating from UA, Shota Aizawa went independent for a few months, meeting an assortment of other pro-heroes and vigilantes while working to build a name for himself. In the early morning, he came back to his dilapidated apartment, and sat there staring at the ceiling until exhaustion finally coaxed him to sleep. On particularly rough nights, he pulled out the small wooden box from Abaro's mom hidden in the gap he'd made in his obnoxiously huge brown couch and looked at the items inside. A small pair of goggles and a tattered business card, in addition to his emergency funds. And he'd be damned, but All Might knew a bit about underground heroes. Shota made arrests left and right, putting a real impact into the drug trade and human trafficking in the area, but realistically, he made almost as much money working for the Yakuza boss all those years ago. Sure, he made honest money now, a huge intangible benefit, but that was the only thing huge about it. Nemuri and Hisashi both kept pestering him, too. They both signed on with the Might Agency and both made far more money for the same amount of work. Nemuri basically set her own hours, being the only underground hero to sign up so far other than Sir Nightai, who also walked the line between underground and daylight like she did. She got vacation days and weekends off, although she set her weekend as Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the slowest nights when it came to crime. For Shota, he lived by the phrase if you don't work, you don't eat. One bad injury and he'd be homeless unless he dipped into his emergency funds. He rolled his eyes at himself. He should just call it a bribe. A month before graduation, feeling a debt of gratitude to the Yakuza boss who employed him all those years, he met with the older man. The Yakuza ran under a don't ask, don't tell principle, but this once, he felt compelled to tell. A risky gamble that blew all the high-stakes games he saw over the years out of the water. He admitted to the boss that he would earn a hero license and graduate from UA soon. Shota announced he could no longer check the games for quirk usage, and highly recommend a move to a new location, one Shota knew nothing about. He almost expected the whole thing to end in his murder, but the boss liked Shota, so instead, he received severance pay. 6 million yen and assurances that he more than earned it over the years. To his shame, Shota took it, but never used any of it. Now, with a blinding migraine and feeling a cold coming on, he felt tempted. The thought of going on patrol tonight filled him with a sense of dread, a near premonition that this would be the night he would finally meet Aburo again. Well, screw this. He picked up the card and reached for his cell phone, nearly dropping it in shock. It rang the instant he touched it. He glanced at it. Unknown number. Well, if it ended up being a telemarketer, luck favored them. Aizawa, he said, pressing the answer button and switching to speakerphone. Yes, I am aware, the crisp male voice replied. I am Sir Nightai. All Might's sidekick? What the hell? Shota stared at the phone. Ah, my apologies. My quirk is foresight. I can see the future of anyone I touch and, I fear, your friend Nemuri Kayama can best be described as touchy-feely. The man on the other end of the phone sighed. She caught me by surprise with and Shota could hear the man shudder, hug, and I accidentally activated my power, seeing her celebrating with you and Hisashi Yamada on you joining the Might Agency. Tonight. Now hold on a minute, Shota started. A heavy sigh came through the phone. There's really nothing to discuss, the future is already set, and further debate is, quite frankly, illogical. You're hired. You'll just need to come in and fill out some minor paperwork. All Might asked me to prepare it quite some time ago, and there's a rather substantial sign-on bonus. Would you like to know where you'll be going for drinks and dinner tonight? Oh, well, no. Shota said as a question. Wonderful. You can stop by the office any time you like. Take some vitamin C, you're not contagious yet but will be tomorrow. I would advise using one of the sick days you will have. Without any further ceremony, the phone hung up. Shota stared at it for a few more moments, sleep forgotten. He put on his hero costume, honestly the best looking outfit he owned other than the suit he worn that night, and certainly the most comfortable. Oh well, he thought, they knew what they were getting. A quick train ride later, and he stood in Tokyo staring up at Might Tower. Musudafu wasn't a small town by any means, but no place quite compared to Tokyo. Honestly, Musudafu was a suburb, and would probably be swallowed into the city in another 100 years. Steeling himself, he walked in through the glass doors and headed for the reception desk. The man behind the desk looked up and saw him coming. Without a break in his phone conversation, he scrunched his eyes closed, and with a small popping noise a duplicate of himself appeared. "Good afternoon, Eraserhead." The duplicate man handed him a badge while the original continued the phone call. "This one is a temporary one, but they'll make you a permanent one before you leave. Since you're a hero, you're not expected to display the badge." He winked. "I think Present Mike keeps his in his shoe." Aizawa sighed. "He would." He took the badge, with a quick, "Thanks." The receptionist nodded. "Glad I could help. I'm a fan." Aizawa's shock clouded his expression. "Of me?" he asked with barely held horror. Mr. Reception chuckled. "My sister lives in Musudafu. You saved her from a mugging, or worse, a few weeks ago." Aizawa buried his face in his capture scarf to hide the red in his cheeks and ears. "I'm glad I could help her." The man nodded. "You might never get a parade, but you're the best as far as my family is concerned. You'll want the second elevator, the badge will automatically trigger it if you're close. 50th floor, all the way to the top." "Thanks again," Shota said, heading down the hallway. One of those days that set off his nerves. First the creepy call with Sir Nightai, then actually being recognized by a civilian. And now he realized a massive figure stood right behind him. The hand landed on his shoulder gently, but he didn't doubt that if the man attached to it wanted, Shota would find himself several centimeters shorter and or buried in the floor right now. "Young Aizawa. I'm so glad you decided to join us." Shota turned to face the symbol of peace. Intimidating by the mere fact that the man towered over him, All Might stepped back several paces so that Shota could look him in the eye without having to crane his neck upward painfully. A subtle distinction, with All Might more than capable of staring down on most people but didn't abuse it. Shota met Endeavor once, and the Flame Hero certainly abused his own size. Endeavor would get as close as he could to shorter people, forcing them to look up at him and to feel the heat radiating off him. A total dick move, and if All Might pulled something like it, Shota would walk out the door right now, consequences to the space-time continuum be damned. Seems like a case of no other options according to Sir Nightai. All Might laughed. Not at all. Mirai just thinks he's always right because he hasn't been wrong before. Shota cocked his head to the side, isn't that the same thing? Not when you think about it for a while. If I flip a coin, it will be either heads or tails, right? Shota nodded. Of course. All Might held up a finger, there's an exceedingly small chance that it will land on the edge and remain standing that way. I've seen that happen. Based on the activation requirements, Mirai's quirk only works on people, and I wonder if he can truly account for random chance. So, while I trust Mirai and his quirk, I don't think that the future is perfectly set in stone. I believe in free will too much to ever say we have no choices. You know, you're a lot deeper than you seem on TV, All Might. Shota felt a lot more at ease now. He might not walk out the door, but it comforted him to know that he really could if he wanted to. All Might nodded. I did want to thank you, by the way, for what you did that night in Musudafu and going to the wake. It meant a great deal to the Midoriya family. I think you made quite an impression on young Izuku Midoriya. Shota hated funerals, experiencing them far too often. Enough to know that they weren't really for the departed. After all, why should the dead care? No, funerals existed to comfort the people left behind. A young wife and son certainly didn't deserve that. He'd been much older than the kid when he lost both of his parents, and while time faded that wound, the cut from Obero's death still stung. He's a good kid, even if he has dreadful taste in onesies. He shouldn't have had to go through that. All Might looked closely at Shota Aizawa with a grin, and the younger hero felt like he'd just passed his license exam all over again. No one should. That is why we are here. Years ago, Kyude worked feverishly over the shattered body of All for One, while Gigantomachia sat sullenly nearby, watching in silence. Despite the extreme damage, the master survived, a great benefit to the doctor as well. If All for One died, Gigantomachia would surely frenzy, and Gariki knew he would not survive that rage any more than the city would. He set All for One's nose, but for his eyes and hair, well, nothing remained to save. If only regeneration quirks weren't so rare, but alas, he had yet to find one the master could steal. He'd managed to reinflate his master's collapsed lung, but the lining of both lungs suffered scars and blisters where intense heat badly burned them. A blow severed his spinal cord, snapping it nearly in two. He'd be paralyzed below the waist. An intake of breath told him the master awoke. A powerful hand grasped him around the neck. "Who are you?" Gariki choked out, "Your loyal servant, master. Gigantomachia is here as well." The grip relaxed but did not completely release him. "How bad is the damage?" Gariki relayed his paralysis, blindness, and permanent damage to his lungs. All for One never appreciated attempts to hide the truth from him. "I see. You have my gratitude, Doctor." "You as well, Gigantomachia." "We live to serve you," Gariki replied. Now, years later, the master's health had improved greatly. While still paralyzed, he wore a powerful exoskeleton, scuttling about in one of his many secret bases on 8 robotic legs, appearing as a giant hybrid man/spider, weaving a web that encircled Japan and, to a lesser extent, the world. All for One's voice rasped, a mechanical quality to it thanks to his breathing apparatus. "Doctor, the time has come for my ultimate project, a Nomu that will be the perfect physical and psychological weapon against All Might. I have the perfect subject in mind." "Of course, Master. Anything you wish, I will do." "Good," the villain breathed. "I no longer wish to kill All Might, but I want to leave him alive, trapped within a crippled body, barely able to move or breathe, every moment one of pain. Slowly dying, knowing that when he does, One for All will die with him." All for One turned to leave, his original legs atrophied and dangling uselessly below him. "One other thing, Doctor. I possessed a shape-changing quirk, but it seems to have disappeared. This is most troubling. We will need to start keeping detailed records of my quirks and find the reason why it is missing." Shota sighed, the last of his class left a while ago. He often thought about the day he signed on with the Might Agency whenever he ran into All Might. A good decision, giving him independence while still enjoying the benefits of an agency. Never forced to pick up extra shifts or patrol in upscale areas. They'd encouraged him to take the teaching job at UA, offering him flexibility to cut back his patrol hours without decreasing his pay. As much as he hated to admit it, he owed a lot to All Might. Not only did the man give him a great job and financial security during a rough patch in his life, but he also got Shota's innate grumpy nature. He would tease back when appropriate but knew when to provide quiet support. Shota asked him about it once, and All Might just grinned and told him, "You, young Aizawa, are a cactus." Almost 4 years since All Might said that to him, and he still hadn't figured it out, and he'd be damned if he'd ask for an explanation. Was it some stealth insult? Thoughts of the past vanished when Recovery Girl's voice rang out over the school's intercom. "Shota Aizawa, please report to the infirmary." He shot out of his sleeping bag and tore down the hall in an instant. He burst through the door, hand on his capture weapon as he tried to steady his breath. "Is a kid hurt?" "No, you big softy," Recovery Girl coddled him. All Might wanted to talk to you, and you weren't in the teacher's office. Shota let out a breath, turning to the symbol of peace. You could have just called. All Might looked mildly apologetic. Sorry, young Izawa. I wanted to speak to both you and Recovery Girl. I need a bit of advice, and I think the two of you could be a big help. Shota blinked. The two of us. Nodding, the number one hero stood up, pacing around the room. During the battle with All for One, he poisoned me. At the look on Shota's face, he quickly added, nothing fatal, but in time, it will keep me from using my quirk. Sometime in the next 10 years, I'll no longer be able to use my power. A voice from the door surprised them all. If I may interrupt, perhaps this discussion would be better suited to my office. Principal Nizu stood at the door in his tiny, tailored suit. I suspect this is not a matter that we'd want a student or anyone else to overhear. All Might nodded, and the principal moved over to Izawa, who patiently sat as the principal gently climbed up to rest in the folds of his capture weapon. While perfectly capable of walking on two legs, it often tired Nizu trying to keep up with long-legged humans. To do it without pain, the humans must walk at an abnormally slow pace, or Nizu needed to use all four limbs, and both options slightly humiliated the being overseeing the most prestigious school in the world. Apparently treating one of his teachers as a trusty steed didn't humiliate the principal in the slightest, but honestly, Shota didn't mind in the least. On pain of death, he'd never reveal this to anyone, but Nizu sometime purred when riding in the capture weapon. That alone, and the extra measure of freedom that his silence brought, made it worth it to the underground hero. With that, the four moved through the halls to the principal's office. With practiced ease, Shota moved toward the principal's desk, bending down slightly so that the tiny mammal could jump into his chair. With the press of a few buttons, the doors sealed, shutters closed, and the room filled with a quiet hum. There, the principal said with some satisfaction. We are now safe from almost all forms of spying. You may continue from where you left off, All Might. My enhanced hearing picked up the beginning of your conversation, hence the reason I rushed to stop you. Thank you, sir, All Might replied, turning to Shota. As Nizu and Recovery Girl are already aware, I was born quirkless. He held up a hand at the questioning look on Shota's face. Don't worry, I'll explain everything. Over the next 30 minutes, Shota heard a fascinating story, some of which he'd heard in rumors through the underground and from the Yakuza of a powerful Shadow King, ruling Japan from the darkness, able to give and take quirks like cards in a children's game. The part he never heard before, or even suspected, All Might told. A counterpoint to this shadow existed, a quirk that could be passed on, but only willingly. A quirk so powerful that it turned a powerless boy into the symbol before him, a symbol that would, in time, weaken. Shota stared hard at All Might. While I appreciate you trusting me with this, and I swear I'll keep it secret, I'm not sure why you'd want to tell me. I'm the last person you should give that power to. Point number 1, Shota hated the spotlight. Point number 2, the power drastically enhanced the quirk of anyone who held it. Add one for all to erasure, and who knows what could happen. His quirk could evolve to permanently remove other quirks, extend to an unlimited range, or work through solid objects. If he looked to the ground, he might cause people on the other side of the world to lose their quirks. Too many unknowns. Well, that brings me to the advice I need, All Might said with a smile. Do you remember Izuku Midoriya, young Izawa? Shota rocked back. Yeah, I remember. Hard to forget what happened that night. All Might nodded. I met young Midoriya today in the Musudafo Municipal Park. 3 larger boys menaced another child with their quirks. Young Midoriya stepped between them and faced down the 3 bullies. Shoten nodded in approval, having been targeted quite a bit in his youth. Sounds like the kid's growing up pretty good. He's also quirkless. Even more impressive, Shota thought, but then realization struck him. Whoa, wait a minute. This is an awful idea. The kid is like 11. 12, actually. Today is his birthday. Shota slapped his forehead with his hand. Tell me you did not hand the most powerful quirk in the world to a 12-year-old kid. Not yet. Coins do land on their edge on occasion, but it's always strange to see it. Also, Aizawa was originally going to only be in the first couple of chapters, but he kept demanding more screen time.
Really? Okay. I have 2 options. I gotta see how long the videos are right now, so I can probably, because I'm gonna probably record, straight to the lowest live stream, like, probably 5 minutes, probably? You know, just in case. Okay, so we're gonna end the episode here, and then, like, 5 minutes? Okay, probably, like, not even 5 minutes. We're gonna continue. So if you're alright, please like, favorite, share, subscribe.